So last week we were talking about Yom Teruah, which is the Feast of Trumpets, or the day of blowing the shofar. We've been talking about that actually the past 2.5 weeks, and we had our Yom Teruah service. And as we know, that's an appointed time. So Yom Teruah is a time where we meet with the Most High, and we just celebrated that. The next appointed time that's coming up is Yom Kippur, and that's translated as the Day of Atonement. So we're going to talk about this for a little bit today. I don't know how long we're going to be, because I actually have some other things I would like to discuss as well. But we're at least going to explain what this day is, why it's important, and prophetically, maybe we will see in the scriptures in our studying how this day is going to be fulfilled in the future. Okay, so what is Yom Kippur? Yom means day in the Hebrew, but Kippur is translated as atonement. It's three Hebrew letters there: the Kaf, the Pei, and the Resh. And atonement, I went to the Webster's Dictionary, 1828. Atonement, it can mean an agreement, concord, reconciliation after enmity or controversy. So basically, some type of agreement that occurs after a disagreement, or after a war, or after some type of event that causes people to be at odds with one another. The second definition here says expiation, satisfaction or reparation made by giving an equivalent for an injury, or by doing or suffering that which is received in satisfaction for an offense or injury with for. So something is done that was wrong, and so someone suffered harm, or perhaps there was a covenant that was broken, and so the person that broke the covenant has caused some type of um, issue or problem, or an injury, caused some amount of suffering. So what is necessary to remedy that problem is an atonement has to be made. So a reparation, something has to be given to basically right the wrong. Right the wrong. That's one way you could look at it. I think it'd be good for us also just to look at the Hebrew definition, like look at the Hebrew lexicon, because I didn't put that in here. So we're going to look at Exodus 29:33, and let's see. Okay, here's the word kapor or kapar, atonement. So let's look at this definition. Okay, to cover over, pacify, make propitiation. So when you think of kapar or kapur, sometimes they say kafar. Yeah, there's different dialects, the way people pronounce this pay here. Some say kafar, some say kapar or kapor. But basically, it means, the primary definition is to cover over. So you're covering over top of something. It actually should remind you of the cherubim. It's got the same root word in it, or it's very similar. The cherubim are the angels that cover. They cover. And in fact, when you look at the Ark of the Covenant, let's look at a picture of the Ark of the Covenant. Yes, when I saw those connection too, I was like, yeah, that's a deep connection. It's really all connected together. So when you look at this Ark of the Covenant, I don't know if this is the best one. Let me see if there's another one. Well, we'll just use this for now. But when you look at these two cherubim in this picture here, they're facing each other and they are covering. They are covering. So you see this is called the mercy seat. The mercy seat. That's what it is in English. But if we look at this in Hebrew, let me show you what it is in Hebrew. In Hebrew, it's the word kipporet. Kipporet or kapor with a tav at the end of it. So it's the same, the mercy seat, which is on the Ark of the Covenant, is a covering. It covers. So Yom Kippur is all about this covering that's going to take place. You even see it on the Ark of the Covenant, on the most holy, on that holy seat that you can kind of think of like a throne. So it's the covering, because you have the angels that are covering, and below the mercy seat, inside of the Ark of the Covenant, you have the Torah, you have the 10 Commandments, the 2 tablets of stone, and you have Aaron's rod that was budding, and you also have the what is that called again? The manna from the manna that came down from heaven. They put some of the manna in that Ark of the Covenant. So, and as you're saying, prophet, let me look at your chat. You said mercy, the mercy covers, yes. And then my mom said at one relationship with Yah. Yes. So atonement. You're at one with the Most High. That's good, because we're going to see that that's what this day is all about. Actually, we're going to see that that's what this day is all about. So going back to the definition we were just looking at, kapor, covering, cover over. It also means to pacify. This is similar to the definition we looked at. So pacify, meaning to quell the anger, agitation, or excitement of, to bring peace to. That's what's happening during Yom Kippur. When an atonement is being made, you're stopping or reducing the anger. Whatever's causing agitation, you're causing that agitation to be removed, or at least pacified. You're softened. You're bringing peace. You may still be angry, but at least your wrath is going to be held back, at least for a moment in time. That's what's happening on Yom Kippur. That's what has happened all throughout the past. When atonement has been made. We see this third definition here, to make propitiation. So let's look at this definition as well, because that's a big word we don't often use. It says the action of propitiating or appeasing a god, spirit, or person. So let's look at the definition of propitiating or propitiation. Let's see. Propitiating. Okay. Win or regain the favor of by doing something that pleases. So all this, is helping us understand this word a little bit better now. So when you think of covering over, you can think of covering over some type of sin or transgression, something that was done wrong. That's what happens on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. You can think of making peace, and you can think of propitiation, meaning um, uh, winning or regaining the favor of by doing something. So something has to be done. It doesn't just happen all by itself. Something has to be given to make that peace occur. Okay. Let's go back. Let's look at the scripture, Romans 5:11. Webster, that's one thing that's good about Webster's dictionary. He always gives a scripture to help us understand. I want to see what the scripture is talking about. Romans 5:11. Let's start at verse 10. Actually, I'll start at verse 8. It says, but God commended his love toward us, and that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more than being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. So we're justified, which means made righteous by his blood. Through that blood, we're going to be saved. We shall be saved from what? From wrath through him. So it's through Yahushua's blood, through our Messiah's blood, that we're justified or made or declared righteous. We know that we're not righteous based on anything that we have done. Our righteousness has to be through Yahushua. It has to be through him, because he's the only one that made this atonement. He's the only one that could make the atonement for us. Verse 10, it says, for if when we were enemies, remember when we looked at that definition for Kippur, and we looked at the definition of atonement, we saw that it's all about making peace. And who do you make peace with? You make peace with your enemies. You make peace with those that have wronged you. So, for if when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his son, much more being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. So, by the death of the son, we have now been made reconciled. And not only so, but we also joy in God through our Lord Jesus Christ, or our Adonai Yahushua HaMashiach, by whom we have now received the atonement. So our atonement, our Kippur, is through Yahushua, through the Son. So he's the one that made peace, so that we can be reconciled back to the Father. That's the problem that happened with us sinning against the Most High. Once we sinned, then we were separated. We were separated from the Father. So Yahushua has now allowed us to be reconciled right back to him by way of the Son. says, wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, that's Adam. A lot of people like to just blame Satan for everything, and we can blame him for a lot of things. But sin actually was allowed to come because of one man. That one man, it came through Adam. So by one man, sin entered into the world, and death by sin. Remember, he said, when you sin, you shall die. You shall surely die. In Hebrew, he emphasized that word die twice, right? And so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. So this is the understanding now of Kippur. Hey Abby, nice to see you joining us. So now when you think of Day of Atonement, I hope you at least have some understanding. This day is about making peace. That's what it's about. Okay. We're going to look at Leviticus 16, because Leviticus 16 is going to tell us how this day actually came about. Actually, before, I already showed the scripture, so I might have already blown it. But does anybody have an idea how this day came into be? How this day came to be emphasized in terms of the practice of observing this? Why is it that this day was instituted by Yah through Moses? Does anybody have an idea? I kind of already gave a hint.
It sounds like the precursor to what the Levites did in the tabernacle.
That's right. That's right. Now, did you already know that? Or did you look at the scripture?
Nope, just my knowledge of the tabernacle and Levitical duties.
There you go. That's good. Good observation. Good observation. The Levites made a mistake. And because of this mistake, we're going to see how this day comes into being. So, Leviticus 16:1. It says, now Yahuwah spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they came near the presence of Yahuwah and died. I feel like I'm skipping some stuff. Let's go to, I think it's Leviticus 10. Let's go to Leviticus 10 before we read that part. I want you to know how they died. Okay. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron. Remember, Aaron is Moses' brother. Aaron was given the responsibility and the privilege of being high priest over Israel as a nation. And the Levites were given the responsibility to be priests, but only the sons of Aaron were the ones that could actually serve in the temple. So Levi had a lot of different children. And so, but Aaron got the special privilege where he got to perform the offerings and the sacrifices, and so that's what's happening here when we read about Nadab and Abihu, who are his sons. Since they are his sons, that means that they are given the responsibility of being priests. They are the Kohanim. So let's read this again. And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer and put fire therein and put incense thereon and offered strange fire before Yahuwah, which he commanded them not. So Yah commanded that the priests offer fire in a certain way. So this word strange means they were not offering the fire on the altar the proper way. And now that I'm saying that, I've never actually looked at this word that I can remember. Strange. I just want to see if there's anything that stands out about this. Strange is the Hebrew word zer. Let's see what it means. To turn aside, to depart. Okay. To turn from the way, to lodge at anyone's house, hence to be a stranger. Stranger, strange, especially of another nation, an alien by birth, of another family, a strange woman, as opposed to that which is upright, true, and lawful. Strange is the same as unlawful. So, looking at this word zer, strange fire, it means that this fire was offered up unlawfully, not according to Torah, not according to Yah's instructions. Hold on one. Okay. Okay, let's go back. And there went out fire from Yahuwah and devoured them, and they died before Yah. So remember, they're in the wilderness now. They just came out of Egypt, and this is a demonstration to all of Israel of what can happen. This is a demonstration of what can happen when you, even when you're so-called worshiping the Most High, and you're doing it, we're serving Him, but you're serving Him incorrectly. So Nadab and Abihu, they're offering the incense, they're offering up the fire, but they're not doing it in the way, they're not doing it lawfully, not according to the Torah, not according to the instructions. So a fire came from who? From Yah. Yah came and devoured, He consumed. But remember, He is a consuming fire. So He's loving. I'm sorry, 1 second, y'all. I'm sorry, I got to deal with something. Sorry about that. I had to talk to one of my children. Okay, so you see, this fire comes, it devours them, and they die. It says before Yah. Then Moses said unto Aaron, this is that the Yah spake, saying, I will be sanctified in them that come nigh me, that come near to me. And before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. So just like when my mom gave that definition earlier, when you look at atonement, you see at, and you see one, and you see meant. So you can see that Yah is emphasizing that He will be sanctified. Sanctified means made holy. He will be made holy in them, meaning the priests, and them that come nigh, those that draw close, those that want to be one with the Most High. He's going to be set apart. He's going to be set apart in us, in the priests, and before all the people. He's saying, I will be glorified, meaning you're not going to offer an offering up to me like you see other nations offering offerings to their false gods. That's what's happening here. When He's saying, I will be sanctified, He's saying, I will be set apart. I will be unique. I will be different. I will not be served like everybody else. And I'm going to be sanctified. I'm going to be set apart in them that come nigh into me. And who's those that come nigh unto him? The priest. Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu. Those are the ones who have that privilege, and Moses too. Moses wasn't a son of Aaron, but Moses was given a privilege to be able to draw nigh as a priest as well, even before Aaron. But eventually, he places that mantle onto Aaron, and he says, "Your descendants are going to be the ones that are going to draw nigh unto me." Okay, we're talking about ancient Israel now. Okay, verse 4. It says, "And Moses called Mishael and Elzaphan, the sons of Uzziel, the uncle of Aaron, and said unto them, Come near, carry your brethren from before the sanctuary out of the camp." Okay, so I forgot I have this stuff already here. Let's look at this. Okay, so he called Mishael and Elzaphan. These are Aaron's the sons of Aaron's uncle. So these are Levites too, but they're not sons of Aaron. He said to them, "Come close, come near, come get your relatives, and take them away from the sanctuary to the outside of the camp." The outside of the camp is where the unclean go. The outside of the camp is where you got to go when quarantine is supposed to happen because someone has a disease such as leprosy. Outside of the camp is where the red heifers were burned with the ashes outside of the camp. Outside of the camp is where the waste and the refuse was taken. It's taken outside the camp. Outside of the camp is also where the dead had to go. Because inside the camp is holy, is kadosh. So Moses, he tells them, come get your dead relatives. And so they came near and carried them still in their tunics. They were still wearing their priestly garments, as Moses has said. So I got this question here. Is Yah always fine with parents mourning for their children? Is that always okay to do? Say you had children and they passed away. Is that always something that is permitted to do within Israel? That's my question. Okay, Ty says no. Not always. And I would agree with Ty because of this scripture right that comes next. It says, Then Moses said to Aaron and to his sons, Eleazar and Ithamar, do not uncover your heads, nor tear your clothes. So uncovering their heads and tearing their clothes would be a sign of mourning. He says, don't do that so that you will not die. Go out if you need to go out. You can go out if you need to go out. And that he will not become wrathful against all the congregation. So Moses, he's letting them know, I don't want to see any mourning. No grieving. Don't tear your clothes. I don't want to see any of that. Because if you do that, you will die. The first time I saw this really taught me. This really taught me a big lesson. It says that you don't want to do this so that he will not become wrathful against all the congregation. So if the priests, if the leaders, the ones that are allowed to come near, if y'all mess up Yah's going to take it out on everybody. The whole congregation may experience the wrath if y'all mess up. So this is important. Don't mess this up. So Ty is asking, but is that specific to the Levites or everyone? Well, in this scenario, well, actually, I'm not even going to answer the question because you're about to see. We're going to get the answer to this through in the text. So hold that for a second. Let's finish this. It says, but your relatives, the whole house of Israel, shall weep over the burning which Yahuwah has brought about. So that's the answer to your question. The priests, even though they were close family members, they weren't allowed to weep. And if they wept, then the whole entire congregation was going to have to face the consequences. So but he says, but your relatives, the whole house of Israel, they're allowed to weep. It's interesting. And if y'all have some thoughts about this, just raise your hand and you can add. But what I'm seeing here is Yah's requirements for his priests are much greater than the congregation. What I'm saying is, if you want to draw close to Yah, you want to draw near, you want to be able to go close, if you want to be able to go close like the priests, you have a greater level of responsibility, a greater level of sanctification that has to happen. Otherwise, why is it that the priests, the sons of Aaron, and even the sons of Aaron and Moses' sons, if they choose to do this, if they choose to tear their clothes, if they choose to weep, they're going to die. But the congregation can, they can go ahead. Go ahead, Mom.
I think it has more to do with their disobedience to the requirements of the high priest, more so than just going through the experience of a close relative's emotional death, the emotion that you go through from the death of a close relative. I think it's more related to their disobedience.
So it's more related to whose disobedience?
It's related to the disobedience of Nahum. What was their names again?
Nadab
and Abihu. Yeah.
Okay, so it's definitely related to their obedience. I'm sorry, disobedience.
Right.
But the other priests did, or actually, let's look at this again. It said, then Moses said to Aaron and to his sons Eleazar and Ithamar. So these are the other sons of Aaron. This is their family. This is all, these are their brothers, basically. He's saying, you don't mourn, you don't weep. If you do that, you're going to die. So my question is, why is it that they are not allowed to mourn? Go ahead, Prophet.
Yeah, I have to kind of side with Mother on this one because I'm thinking that I'm having a hard time reconciling that Yahuwah is telling them not to be sad about their brother dying, because Ecclesiastes tells us to mourn with them that mourn and rejoice with them that rejoice. And there's a time and season for everything. And losing a loved one is a natural human response. So there has to be something, some context with this. I'm just thinking that we haven't uncovered yet, that there's something deeper, something deeper that he's referring to. I just don't know what quite yet.
Okay, I'm glad you said that. Go ahead, Ty. All right, we can't hear you. Your computer is doing that beeping thing again.
Hear me?
Yes.
I feel like Prophet Miller kind of answered it, because there's a time and season for everything, and that was not the season for mourning. That was the season for them obeying what Yah said, and there shouldn't have been any death, because they shouldn't have been offering strange fire. And so this is my opinion, is Yah was teaching the children of Israel, and a distraction happened, and Yah said, no, we're not going to the distraction. You're going to continue doing what I said, and then when we're done, then you can mourn. But if you mourn and you give over to that distraction, then that distraction is more important than what I'm doing. And now your whole action is like strange fire. Your response is like strange fire. So now you can bring my wrath on everybody else. So that's my opinion.
That's good. I like the differing opinions. I like it all, because what we're doing is we're thinking about this. I'm not saying anybody is right or wrong, but I want to think about this, because when I see these types of contrasting things, this type of stuff sticks out to me. So the priests, the sons of Aaron, they can't mourn, but the house of Israel can. I'll tell you what this reminds me of. We're going to go to Jeremiah chapter 22. Oops, I put that in there wrong. Something is going on with the website.
Try doing the quick. Yeah, I was gonna say try the quick nav instead.
I guess I'm gonna have to go. Let's go to Bible Gateway.
While you're doing that, I have a quick question.
Yes.
What was the purpose of the fire? What purpose did God put in place for the fire?
You tell me.
Well, from my studies, it was always to burn. It was to burn what was placed upon the altar.
Yes.
And if it was an acceptable sacrifice, then the smoke, it would rise up. If it was not an acceptable one, the smoke would not rise up. So it was to burn the sacrifice.
Yes.
So I'm asking again, what was the purpose in this situation? What was the purpose of the fire?
So I think we will see that as we continue to study this Yom Kippur. As we go through the scriptures, like I'm going to show the different types of offerings that are to take place. And we'll look and we'll see when the high priest was to draw near in the way that they were attempting to draw near, but didn't do it all the way correctly. When we study Yom Kippur, we're going to see for what reasons fire was offered. Go ahead, Prophet.
And if I remember correctly, don't quote me on this, but if I remember that whole incident correctly, Aaron's two sons, they were not in right standing when they made that sacrifice, which is why it was strange fire, and they consequently died on the spot, like right in front of everybody. But I think, like I said, they had the title on the roll, but they weren't in a proper function. They had done something they had not atoned themselves for, which is why the consequence came, if I remember correctly.
Okay. We can look at that. I would imagine that they probably, I mean, if they're offering up offerings unlawfully, who knows what else they were doing unlawfully? Because the instructions are very clear. There was no ambiguity about the way they were supposed to be offering up the fire, or the way they were supposed to be offering the incense. So there's no, they couldn't mess that up unless they did it intentionally. So if they do it intentionally, then it leads you to believe, you know, something was not right, perhaps with them in their lives, you know, if they're willing to do that. I don't know what it is, if they didn't take it seriously, they didn't believe, or what it was. But I can see that. But going back to the weeping question, we're gonna look at Jeremiah 22. And we're gonna start at verse 1. It says, "Thus saith Yahuwah, go down to the house of the king of Judah and speak there this word, and say, hear the word of Yah, O king of Judah, that sitteth upon the throne of David, thou and thy servants and thy people that enter in by the gates. Thus saith Yah, execute ye judgment and righteousness, and deliver the spoiled out of the hand of the oppressor, and do no wrong. Do no violence to the stranger, the fatherless, nor the widow, neither shed innocent blood in this place. For if ye do this thing indeed, then shall there enter in by the gates of this house kings sitting upon the throne of David, riding in chariots and on horses, he and his servants and his people. But if you will not hear these words, I swear by myself, saith Yahuwah, that this house shall become a desolation." So what we're seeing here, he's telling the Most High is telling, it says the house of the king of Judah. He's telling them how to behave. He's saying execute judgment and righteous, deliver the spoiled out of the hand of the oppressor, do no wrong, do no violence to the stranger, the fatherless. Basically, treat people with love, honor, and respect. And he says, but if you don't do this, if you will not hear these words, he says, I swear by myself, saith Yah. Yah is the one that's swearing. He doesn't have anyone greater to swear to, so he has to swear by himself. He says that this house shall become a desolation. Your house is going to be destroyed. For thus saith Yahuwah unto the king's house of Judah, thou art Gilead unto me, and the head of Lebanon. Yet surely I will make thee a wilderness, and cities which are not inhabited. And he did this, by the way. And I will prepare destroyers against thee, every one with his weapons, and they shall cut down thy choice cedars and cast them in the fire. And many nations shall pass by this city, and they shall say, every man to his neighbor, wherefore or why hath the Lord done thus unto this great city? Then they shall answer, because they have forsaken the covenant of Yahuwah, their Elohim, and worship other gods and serve them. Now look at verse 10 here. Weep ye not for the dead, neither bemoan him, but weep sore for him that goeth away, for he shall return no more, nor seeth his native country. We see an example here where the Most High is telling Israel, don't weep for the dead. Don't weep for them. Don't bemoan them. Or just like when he told them, when he told the other sons of Aaron, Ithamar, he said, don't tear your garments. He's saying, don't weep sore for him that goeth away. I'm sorry, but weep sore for him that goeth away. So he's saying weep because the people, they're about to leave. They're about to go. And why are they leaving? Because the city is going to be desolate. It's going to be destroyed because the kings of Judah, of the house of Judah, were not doing what they were supposed to be doing. They were unlawful. So he's saying, don't weep. And the reason that he's saying don't weep for the dead is for a similar reason why he told the priests, the sons of Aaron, not to weep. Let me go back. Let me see if this site is working. Or I can read it from here. The reason that he's saying not to weep is because Yah is angry. His wrath. Look at this. He says, tear your clothes so that you will not die and that he will not become wrathful against all the congregation. So when we see Yah's wrath come, his wrath is coming like it's never, like this planet or this earth has never experienced before. It is coming. It's coming soon. When that wrath comes, we are not to weep because his judgment and his wrath is righteous. So when we are weeping over the righteous, holy, just anger of the Most High, it's opposed to how he feels about the situation. So there are times when a whole bunch of people may die because it was Yah's will. When it's Yah's will, to God be the glory. The priests are separate from the congregation of Israel. The priests have a higher level. I don't know if you want to call it. I just say it like this. They have a greater responsibility. They have a greater level of sanctification that they must meet. The reason is because they draw near to the Most High. So the Most High, just as the Most High is holy, just as the Most High is sanctified, the priests, they also have to be holy. They have to be sanctified. He doesn't want them coming into his presence with their own mind. Eleazar and Ithamar are the ones that are now going to take over for Nadab and Abihu. So that's what I'm seeing when I read this. I like what everybody was saying, but I see situations throughout the scriptures. I just gave you one example, but there are situations throughout the scriptures where there's times where the command is weep not. So like the verse you said earlier, I forget who said it. There's a time to weep, and there's a time to mourn, and there's a time to refrain from weeping. Let's keep going. Yes, I see the comment. You said that greater I think you said greater responsibility, something like that. So
To whom much is given, much is required.
yes, to whom much is given, much is required. Exactly. They were given access. They were given access that the whole congregation of Israel did not have. So a distinction is being made between the priests and the rest of the people. So no, I did not see your question. Let me see. Is there a connection with the weeping and Yahusha saying to the woman on the way to the cross not to weep for him, but weep for yourselves and your children? I don't know. Let's look at it. In that scenario, when he's saying weep for yourselves, let's read this. So that's Luke 23. We'll start at verse 26. It says that as they led him away, they laid hold upon one, Simon, a Cyrenian, coming out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Yahusha. And there followed him a great company of people and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Yahusha, turning unto them, said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming in which they that shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bare, and the paps which never gave suck, then then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills cover us. For if they do these things in the green tree, what shall be done in the dry? So this passage, you see the women are following Yahusha, and they're moaning, they're lamenting, and crying because they see that he's about to die. He's been beaten so badly. They see all these different things happening, and so they're bewailing, they're lamenting him. And so Yahusha, he looks and he turns to them and he said, Daughters of Jerusalem, don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and weep for your children. Yes, it's bad for me, but it's really going to be bad for y'all. Y'all really going to have it bad. Because you've rejected me, the Son of the Most High, because you've rejected me, Son of God, you're going to go into bondage. You're going to go into captivity. This temple that you have is going to be destroyed, and many of you are going to die. And that has been happening all the way from the time that he died to when the temple was destroyed, all the way up until today. Because as we know, Israel had already gone through many captivities, but now Israel has, I mean, first they were, Jerusalem was destroyed by the Romans and they went into slavery. Those that didn't go into slavery, they had to flee. And then as we've been going through the history, we've seen all the different calamities that have been happening, with the Greeks and the Romans, and then with the Spanish and the Portuguese and all the colonization, all the way leading up to the transatlantic slave trade and whatnot. We've seen all these different things happening. So this is why he's saying, weep not for me, weep for yourselves, because you're going to go through it, you and your descendants, your children. He says, behold, the days are coming where they're going to say, blessed are the barren, blessed are the people that don't have children. because they know their children are going to go through a hard life. There's going to be times when there's brutal chattel slavery going on, and the women are actually going to kill their own kids because they don't want them to grow up in the same life that they have. There's going to be times when people are going to be burned at the stake, like when we were studying the Spanish Inquisition. The Jews in Spain, and not only the Jews, even the Muslims as well, but especially the Jews, where they were burned. Their bodies were burned and torched, and they were tortured. They had their limbs pulled from them, like so they lose their arms, their legs, everything all at the same time. You know, just extreme torture. So to answer your question, Yahusha is basically the judgment of Yah is going to be placed on Israel because of their rejection. I don't know if this is to the same level or degree as what Nadab and Abihu went through, but it does seem really similar because you do see a judgment that's coming from the Most High on Israel because of their disobedience. So let's go back. All right. So let's look at verse 7. He said, "You shall," and hi Nikki, I saw you just joined. We're going over Yom Kippur. So now at verse 7, we say, "You shall not even go out from the doorway of the tent of meeting, lest you die. For the anointing oil of Yahuwah is upon you." So they did according to the word of Moses. So the oil, the anointing oil is on the priests. And what's anointing mean? It means that they are empowered by Yah. They have a certain level of authority as well that has been given to them because they have been anointed. So since the anointing oil of Yahuwah is on them, that means they have a special designation, they have a special responsibility, and they have to be set apart. They have to be holy. They got to be holy, because you got to be more holy than just the typical congregation of Israel. Okay, and you see the same kind of warning too. He says you shouldn't even go out from the doorway of the tent of meeting. If you do that, you're going to die. It's always this warning. The reason for that you got to be holy, the reason for all this purity, all these purity laws, is so that you don't die. It's for your own benefit. You saw what happened to Nadab and Abihu. It's not that I'm being so harsh. It's not that I don't love you. It's just that this is my character. This is who I am. This is my nature. I am who I am, and I'm a consuming fire. And if you're going to come close to me in my presence and you're not right, then you might get burned or completely consumed. This is what we're learning from Yom Kippur. Remember, Kippur is the covering. During this day, we are covered. We are atoning. Atonement is being made. Atonement is pacifying, meaning we're making peace, reconciling ourselves with the Father by peace being made. Okay, now we're going to go to Leviticus 16:2. I'm going to read the first verse again because we read this, but I kind of skipped it. So now coming to chapter 16, now we're going to see now why this Yom Kippur service or day, appointed time, Moed, was instituted. Now we got the backstory now. Nadab and Abihu, they offered strange fire that was an unlawful type of way to offer the fire. So now we're going to see what is the result that comes out of that. So verse 1 says, now Yahuwah spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron. We know who those two sons are. That's Nadab and Abihu. When they came near the panim of Yahuwah and died. Remember, presence is panim, and panim is face, which speaks to intimacy. So Aaron's two sons were in an intimate place with the Most High. They were coming to his face. So verse 2. And Yahuwah said to Moses, tell your brother Aaron that he shall not enter at any time into the holy place inside the veil before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, so that he will not die. Look, this repetition, all these instructions are so you don't die. For I will appear in the cloud over the mercy seat, or over the Kipperet. Remember, Kippur is in Kipperet. Kipperet is the Hebrew word for mercy seat, and in mercy seat, Kipperet, you hear Kippur, which means covering or propitiation. So let's look at a picture of the tabernacle, so we can see exactly what he's talking about here. So we'll look at this picture of the tabernacle. See if I can make it bigger. Go back. Okay. So when we go back to the scripture, it says, and Yahuwah said to Moses, tell your brother Aaron that he shall not enter at any time into the holy place inside the veil. So there's two veils here. You have a veil that separates the court from the holy place. The holy place is on the inside. But then you have another veil which separates the holy place from the holies of holies. So when he says he shall not enter at any time into the holy place inside the veil before the mercy seat, which is on the ark, he's talking about in this innermost room right here. So Eleazar and Ithamar, you can come into the holy place, but don't you come into this room anytime you want. That's what he's saying. That's what Moses got to tell Aaron. Tell your sons, don't you just walk up on in here when you feel like it. Don't do that. Because if you do, you're going to die. And this is the reason you're going to die. For I will appear in the cloud over the mercy seat. I'm going to appear right here in a cloud. Right here. I'm going to appear there. And since I'm there, you just can't show up whenever you want. Because when I show up, if you're not right, if it's not the right day, you're going to die. So you being holy has something to do with meeting me at the appointed time. That's good. The high priest, just like we are getting ready to celebrate Yom Kippur, just like we celebrated Yom Teruah, and we're attempting to celebrate it on the right day. We're trying to get the right day right. At least I'm doing my best. I can't speak for everybody, but I'm really focusing I'm trying to figure out the right days. I'm not just taking what people tell me. I'm studying everything out. You know, I've been wanting to go to this scripture for a long time. I'm going to do it today. We're going to look at the Bereans. I don't know if I'm spelling that right. Okay, it's Acts chapter 17. And we're going to start at verse 10. It says, and the brethren immediately sent and the brethren sent immediate, I'm reading this wrong. And the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea, who coming thither went into the synagogue of the Jews. Now these were more noble than those in Thessalonica, and that they received the word in all readiness of mind, and searched the scriptures daily whether those things were so. Therefore many of them believed, also of honorable women which were Greeks, and of men not a few. But when the Jews of Thessalonica had knowledge that the word of God was preached of Paul at Berea, they came thither also and stirred up the people. So what I want you to notice here is that when Paul and Silas go to Berea by night, they go to this area, and they go into the synagogue of the Jews that were in Berea. But this group of people were considered more noble than those in Thessalonica, and that they received the word with all readiness of mind. They received it, and they were happy to receive it. But this is what they also did. They searched the scriptures daily, every day. They searched the scriptures to see whether those things were so. What that means is when they listen to Paul, when they listen to Silas, they're listening to apostles now. These are apostles by Yahusha. Yahusha chose Paul. But they didn't just take whatever Paul and Silas said. They searched daily the scriptures, whether the things that Paul and Silas were saying were true or not. If they found one thing that didn't line up with the Torah, they might have got ready to stone Paul and Silas, or they might have been ready to kick him out of town with the quickness. They'd been like, get out of here, because they checked. So these group of people, they were more noble. They didn't just listen to what the preacher or the teacher or the evangelist said. They listened, but then every day they study. They want to make sure. So we want to be like these Bereans who study every day. And so that's what I want to do. That's why I'm studying this calendar. I might be wrong, but I'm gonna give it a valiant effort. I'm gonna be like a king, because it's the duty of kings to search out a matter. That's what the Bereans were doing. Okay, back to our picture. So the high priest, he goes into the the priest. The priests were to go into this holy of holies place only on the right day. Okay, let's go back to here. It says in Romans 15:4, it says, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. See, us studying this passage in Leviticus 16, this this is not just for them. This is for us today. We can glean that we're supposed to meet Yah on his appointed times. Not only that, we can learn from Nadab and Abihu that we're supposed to meet him on the right time and the correct way, in the correct manner. So let's go back to Leviticus 16. Let's look at verse 3. It says, "Thus shall Aaron come into the holy place with a young bullock for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering." Okay, so when Aaron, who was the high priest, was to come into the Holy of Holies, he was supposed to bring a bull for a sin offering and a ram for a burnt offering. So this another name for sin offering, a better translation actually for sin offering in English would be purification offering. So it's actually the hata'at olah. So, or I'm sorry, hata'at is the sin offering. But the primary definition of this word, it really doesn't have anything to do with sin. It means to purify. So sometimes you'll see this, like if you're studying this topic, or even in different translations, you'll see this not just called the sin offering. Now it purifies us from sin, so it implies that sin is being washed away. But it's this day is all about the purification that happens. And so when the purification or sin offering happens, basically the blood would be sprinkled. And we're about to read about the blood being sprinkled. But it would be sprinkled, and that blood being sprinkled on the various items within the temple would make atonement. It means it would cover, it would pacify, it would cause Yah's anger to be quelled, as we read in the definition earlier. We also see that there is an Olah offering. Now, an Olah offering is an offering that is completely consumed. So nothing's left. Everything is, they translate it burnt offering, but everything is taken up. So let's keep reading. It says, "And he shall put on the holy linen coat, and he shall have the linen breeches upon his flesh, and shall be girded with a linen girdle, and with the linen mitre shall he be attired. These are holy garments. Therefore shall he wash his flesh in water, and so put them on." So he has to put on his priestly garments. These priestly garments are another avenue of sanctifying, separating, making holy, setting apart from everybody else. This is another. So even what we wear when we go into the most holy place, where we meet the Most High, where we draw near, we have to have a special attire. It says, "He shall have the linen breeches upon his flesh. He shall be girded with a linen girdle, and with the linen mitre," which this is kind of like what's worn over top on the head. Let me show you a picture of a high priest so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's a decent picture. Oh, this is a video. I want to watch a video. Hold on one second. See if I can get a better. I don't know if y'all can see this well or not, but this is the mitre I was talking about. This is the ephod that was worn. And it says the tunic, the linen tunic. See, he was wearing this linen garment underneath the ephod. The ephod is where you see all these wonderful colors. So just to give you an idea of what it looked like. Let's go back. So these are holy garments. No, not anybody could wear these holy garments. You couldn't even touch it. Only the priests. Therefore shall he wash his flesh in water and so put them on. This is another avenue. This is something else the priests had to do. They had to wash themselves. Basically, what we call baptism, it actually comes from the Hebrew word mikvah. So typically in Christianity, we get baptized one time. Most people. Some people may choose to rededicate themselves at some point in their life, and they may get baptized again. But within Israel, the commands and the instructions that Yah gave the Israelites, actually all throughout our lives, we're supposed to be getting a mikvah, or what we call baptism. And the priest even more so, because whenever a priest were to go into the temple, they had to wash themselves. Whenever they were to go into the tabernacle, whenever they were to serve, because you were going into a place where Yah's presence was, you had to be clean. Not just spiritually clean, physically clean. Because his physical, tangible, I'll say this, his tangible presence was made manifest by way of that cloud, and sometimes by way of fire. So because he would make his presence made manifest, you needed to be clean. So that means that's spiritually and physically. And so when Nadab and Abihu offer up that strange fire, when you don't follow the instructions, whether it's because you offer up the fire incorrectly, or maybe it's because you don't wash yourself correctly, that can cause you to die. And as we've discussed many times, I don't need to beat a dead horse, but over the past few years, we have discussed how imperfections can cause many things to be burned. Oftentimes, when Christopher would come up and he would talk about jewelry, when he is shaping the jewelry, he used different types of lasers, which are basically different types of light. When he shines the light or the lasers on the gold, or the different types of gemstones, if there are defects, if there are different types of defects on those stones, that light would bounce and it would burn all those defects away. It would melt, it would mold, it would shape and purify the actual metal. But the defects, whatever things are within that gold that make it contaminated, those things just get burned out, like zapped. And that's what the Most High's presence is going to do when he returns. When he returns, the Father is going to return in the Son. The Son is going to come with the glory of the Father. And since that glory of the Father is going to return, remember when the Son came, he humbled himself. Although he had the fullness of the Spirit, he humbled himself. He said that he thought it not robbery to be made equal with God, but he came with his his glory diminished so that we could behold him. Because if he had came as the Father, there's no way that we'd be able to stand in his presence. There's no way. It just wouldn't happen. So the Father is going to return. I should say this. His glory is going to come through the Son. And just like the book of Isaiah says, when he returns, the mountains are going to melt like wax. The mountains are going to melt. The people that are sinners, those that are rebellious, they are going to be consumed by the weight of his glory, by the fire. So we want to be washed. I said all that just to get to this point. We want to be washed in water. Washed in water. The mikvah or the baptism is a symbolic of the washing, the cleansing that should happen to our hearts, the purifying that should happen to us on the inside when we are washed with the blood. And by the daily cleansing and washing of the word. And by the washing and cleansing that happens to us with our intimacy with the Spirit of Yah. These are all foreshadowing the high priest. These are all foreshadowing what should happen to us, since now we are the temple. So when you study what the high priest is doing here and how holy he has to be, how pure he has to be in order to go into the holies of holies, now think about yourself. Think about yourself. We now can draw near. He invites us to draw near unto him. He says that we are seated in heavenly places. We can now come boldly before the throne to obtain mercy, to go before the mercy seat, the kippuret, the covering. We can go boldly because of the kippuret, the covering, Yeshua's blood, which covers our sin so that we can be reconciled to the Father. I feel like preaching. I ain't even preaching yet. I ain't even preaching, but I feel like it. Who thought you could preach on Leviticus? I'm sorry. Let me keep going. Verse 5. And he shall take of the congregation of the children of Israel 2 kids of the goats for a sin offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Thank you, prophet. Don't get me started. Don't don't get me started. I have not preached in a long time. So he shall take of the congregation. That means that from the children of Israel, he's going to take from them 2 goats, 2 kids. That means the kids are the baby goats for sin offering. Remember, this is the purification offering, and 1 ram for a burnt offering. Remember, we talked about this. These goats, actually, we're not there yet, but one of these goats is going to be the scapegoat. It says, and Aaron shall offer his bullock for the sin offering, the purification offering, which is for himself. So the bull, which is like a cow, is for the high priest himself. He's got to make an atonement for himself before he makes an atonement for anybody else. And make an atonement for himself and for his house. So first, this is like a precedent for us priests that are priests after the order of Melchizedek. We are priesthood because we are kings and priests, or we are rulers. We are priests of Israel. First, we take care of ourselves. Then after we take care of ourselves as high priests, as even high priests of our home, then we take care of our family. That's like, he's like teaching us right here that we got to be right first. After we're right, then we got to make sure our family has been atoned for. Before that, we can't do anything else before that those two things happen. And he shall take the two goats and present them before Yahuwah at the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. And Aaron shall cast lots upon the two goats, one lot for Yahuwah and the other lot for the scapegoat. I kind of think of, me and Caleb were talking about this the other day. That kind of similar to like dice, rolling your dice. Whatever it comes out to be on, one of the goats is going to be for Yah. It's going to be sacrificed unto Yah, and the other one is going to be for the scapegoat. And so, as we discussed not too long ago, the scapegoat is Azazel. And just very interesting that we read in the book of Enoch about Azazel being one of the watchers. So I'm not going to go into that just yet, though. Let's keep reading. It says, and Aaron shall bring the goat upon which is Yahuwah's lot fell, and offer him for a sin or purification offering. But the goat on which the lot fell to be the scapegoat, or Azazel, shall be presented alive before Yahuwah to make an atonement with him and to let him go for a scapegoat into the wilderness. So the goat that goes to be for the scapegoat, or Azazel, is to be kept alive. And the reason it's to be made alive is to make an atonement. Remember, atonement is covering, it's a propitiation, it is offering something in order to remedy some situation or to pacify or to make peace. So something is being given up. So that's what the purpose of this goat is for, to let him go for a scapegoat into the wilderness. I see what you're saying, Prophet. Dice only become bad because of the way we use them. That's right. Verse 11, and Aaron shall bring the bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself, and shall make an atonement for himself and for his house, and shall kill the bullock of the sin offering, which is for himself. And he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar before Yahuwah, and his hands full of sweet incense, beaten small, and bring it within the veil. And he shall put the incense upon the fire before Yahuwah, that the cloud of the incense may cover the mercy seat that is upon the testimony, that he die not. Okay, so now there's a few things I see here that are standing out to me. He's taken the censer full of burning coals. These burning coals turn up in a lot of different places. One of the places I'm thinking of right now is in the book of Isaiah. I believe it's Isaiah chapter. It's the verse that says, in the year that King Uzziah died.
I think it's chapter 6.
6. Thank you. So Isaiah 6. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw Yahuwah sitting upon a throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. Now, this is interesting because Isaiah, I wish I had time to talk about this King Uzziah. I'm just now understanding the significance of why he said this, but we'll talk about that later. When this king died, Uzziah died, he says he sees Yahuwah sitting on the throne. Now, remember, this mercy seat, which is on the ark, is similar to a throne. It's because it's where the presence of Yah is sitting, or where the presence of Yah, where he comes on earth at this time, right? So Isaiah is saying, I see him sitting on the throne, high and lifted up, and his train filled the temple. And the tabernacle that Moses is in is a type or a shadow of the temple that's in heaven. Above it stood the seraphims. Each one has 6 wings. With twain he covered his face. So these seraphim are kind of like the cherubim that are on the Ark of the Covenant, because they are also covering as well. The cherubim on the Ark of the Covenant are covering on the mercy seat. You know, the picture I showed you earlier, they're covering. But the seraphim, they cover too. They have 6 wings. And with those 6 wings, with 2 of them, they cover their face. With 2 of them, they cover their feet. So, and one cried unto the other, saying, Kadosh, 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 or holy, holy, holy is Yahuwah of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. And the post of the door moved at the voice of him that cried, and the house was filled with smoke. Well, what did the high priest see when he goes before the Ark of the Covenant at the mercy seat? He would see a cloud arise, or you might even say smoke arise. And because of that reason, he could only go at a certain time on a certain day wearing certain clothes. He was the only one that could do it. That smoke or the cloud would arise, just like like Isaiah is seeing it right here. He said, "Then said I, woe is me, or I'm undone. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, Yahuwah of hosts," or Yahuwah Sabaoth. Then flew one of the seraphims unto me, having a live coal in his hand, with which he had taken with the tongs from off the altar. He laid it upon my mouth and said, Lo, this hath touched my lips, and thine iniquity is taken away, and thy sin purged. So just like we read about the coals from the altar that the high priest was to take. Look at this. It says that Aaron shall where was it at? I just lost it. Oh, right here. So he shall take a censer full of burning coals of fire from off the altar before Yahuwah. Look at this. This is amazing. What the Most High, the instructions that he gave to Moses, to give to Aaron, to give to the high priest, is a picture of what is being done in heaven. All of these details are so important because we're supposed to make earth look like heaven. And so Israel, wherever Israel is, that's the place, wherever Jerusalem is. In this case, they're not all the way there yet. They're not in Jerusalem. They're in the wilderness, but they're practicing now. They're practicing in the wilderness for when they enter into the promised land. Yah's people, Israel, who's going to be in the most holy place, in the most holy city, he wants where they live to look like where he's at. Just like in heaven, where there are angels singing Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. There's a day where polls are taken. There's a day when the blood is sprinkled in heaven. We actually read about that in the book of Hebrews. We're not gonna have no kind of time to even get to all of that, but well, maybe we'll skip to it. But we'll see just what happened here on earth was a type of shadow what happens in heaven. So let's keep reading. It says, he shall take this censer of full burning coals of fire from off the altar before Yah, and his hands full of sweet incense, beaten small, and bring it within the veil. One other thing this reminds me of, We're going to look at, I believe it's Ezekiel. Yes. Ezekiel 28. So when we read about Ezekiel 28:11, we read about the king of Tyre. But this king of Tyre doesn't seem just to be an earthly type of king. Ezekiel 28:11 says, moreover, the word of Yahuwah came to me, saying, Son of man, take up a lamentation for the king of Tyre, and say to him, thus saith Yahuwah Elohim, you were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God, or the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was your covering. The sardis, the topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, sapphire, turquoise, and emerald with gold. The workmanship of your timbrels and pipes was prepared for you on the day you were created. You were the anointed cherub who covers. Let's see. What's that word? The cherub that covers. Cherub that covers. I don't know what this word is, so I just want to see if it's similar. No, okay, this is a different word. It's not kapor, it's sakat. But the sakat, this is the samic. The samic is a word, the Hebrew ancient picture of a samic is like that of a fence. So surrounding, covering. So that's why this means to cover or protect or defend. So let's go back. So you were the anointed cherub that covers. I establish you. You were on the holy mountain of Elohim. That's Mount Zion. You walked back and forth in the midst of the fiery stones. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created till iniquity was found in you. So this is talking about who we believe to be Satan, that old serpent, the devil, who was in Eden, the garden of God. And you see, just like we know the high priest had 12 stones. Remember, we looked at that picture of the high priest right here. And there's just 12 stones right here. Well, these 12 stones are the same exact stones that are on the high priest's garment. The only difference is this anointed cherub is missing 3 that the high priest has. So he was this cherub that was covering. He was around the throne of Yah. And here we also see he dwelt amongst the midst. He was from the midst of the fiery stones. You might even want to call those coals. Coals are like fiery stones. So my point is, in heaven, in Mount Zion, and in the tabernacle, they're all essentially the same. The tabernacle and the temple is a shadow of what is going on above the firmament. There is actually a Yom Kippur service occurring in heaven every year on Yom Kippur. Go ahead, Prophet.
Just to get slightly off topic, just for one hot second, we know, King of Tyre, Yahuwah was talking to Lucifer, who, like you said, is missing 3 of the stones, and just so happens that the tribe of Dan is missing in the book of Revelation. I'm not sure if that correlates, but I thought about that.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I actually, it'd be a good study to look up what their gemstone is, because every tribe is associated to a particular gemstone. That's why there's 12 of them. So that's interesting. Yeah, I want to look that up myself now. Let's keep reading. It says, and he shall take up the blood of the bullock and sprinkle it with his finger upon the mercy seat eastward, and before the mercy seat shall he sprinkle of the blood with his finger 7 times. So once that blood, once this bullock is sacrificed, he's going to take that blood, put it on his finger, sprinkle it on the mercy seat. So the mercy seat, or the Kippuret, the place where Yah sat, the place where the cloud, his presence would come and meet with the high priest, that had to be atoned for. And why did that have to be atoned for? That had to be atoned for because of sin. That was the place where Yah was to come and rest his presence. So it had to be purified. Remember, without the shedding of blood, there's no remission of sin. Yahusha hadn't died yet, so the blood of this bullock is a temporary covering. It's a temporary covering of sin. That's why it had to be done every year on this day, Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Every day it had to be done. But the problem is, the reason it had to be done every year is because even though Israel is the holy people, Israel got this problem. They keep sinning. So because they keep sinning, that means the mercy seat would get contaminated. It would become defiled. Even the high priest, every now and then he sins. He's not perfect either. That's why he had to make an atonement for himself first, then his family. Now you see, even the Ark of the Covenant itself, it's got to be atoned for because it will be defiled with the sins and by the sins of the people. It says, and he shall take of the blood of the bullock, sprinkle it. Oh, I just read that. Let me read the next part. Then shall he kill the goat of the sin offering that is for the people. Now the goat, it's for the people, meaning it's for the atonement of the people, so that their sins, so that they can be purified. And bring his blood within the veil, and do with that blood as he did with the blood of the bullock, and sprinkle it upon the mercy seat before the mercy seat. So he sprinkles the blood of the bullock 7 times, and then he sprinkles the blood of the goat 7 times. Remember, 7, the number 7, it represents completion or perfection, completion. So the 7 times is being done 7 times, and it says, and he shall make an atonement, verse 16, for the holy place. So now the holy place itself, it also has to be purified. This is why I like this word. It's a purification offering, not just a sin offering. Everything that's being done right now is a purification. When the blood is being sprinkled, all these different things are being purified. The blood from these animals purifying the holy place. Because of the uncleanliness, now it's giving us the explicit reason. Because of the uncleanliness of the children of Israel, and because of their transgressions in all their sins. So that is 2 different things. Uncleanliness and transgressions is 2 different things. You can be unclean yet not have sinned. Just to give you one example, one way you can become unclean is by touching a dead body. Another way you could become unclean is if you got a certain sickness, such as a skin disease. If you got a skin disease that was contagious, that skin disease would cause you to be unclean. But just because you got a disease doesn't mean you are in sin. It's possible it may be a result of a sin. I mean, it's possible, but everyone that got sick for various reasons, it was not necessarily because they sinned. Also, a woman, when she was having her menstrual cycle, that would cause her to be unclean as well. Now, that ain't a sin. That's how Yah created a woman to be. So, just to give you an example, when you are unclean for whatever reason it is, whether it's because of a natural reason or maybe it's a result of because of something you did that was a sin, for whatever reason it is, that was unclean. And if you wanted to be in the presence of the Most High, you had to be clean. So Nadab and Abihu, when they offered the strange fire, if they had have done anything that made them unclean, whether it was a sin or not, that could have been another reason for them to die. We know they died because they broke the Torah or they broke the law. They did not offer the fire in the proper way that they were instructed to. So that's lawlessness, which is sin. But this just giving you a reason for the atonement. Now, sin, transgression is when you break the law. Lawlessness. When you disobey Yah's commandment, you are in sin. So for both of those reasons, atonement had to be made. So when we think of atonement being made for us, it's not only for our sin, it's also for our uncleanliness. Which is one of the reasons why I want to understand all of Yah's instructions. I want to understand all of them. I also thankful that for the blood of Yahusha, which is so powerful that it not only washes us like the filth of the flesh, but it has the power to wash even our hearts. It has the power to cleanse our conscience so that we can serve the Most High. So that's a spiritual cleanliness, which is the most important. Both of them are important. Physical cleanliness and spiritual. But the spiritual is even more weightier because that has eternal ramifications. Being unclean physically is temporary. You're only unclean until you're not unclean. There were remedies for becoming clean again. For example, when a woman was unclean, she had to wait 7 days after her period was over. And then she had to do a mikvah. That was another reason for what we call like baptism. She would do a baptism after that, a mikvah. Go in the water, dip. After she's done that, she could then be pronounced clean. And then when she was clean, she could come back into the assembly. Okay? And man, now I wanted to go through all of this, but there ain't no way we're going to go through all of this. So I want to get to the point of what are we supposed to do on this day? Because that's the most important. We are wanting to know what Yah's feasts are, his appointed times, and what are we supposed to do? How does this apply to us? So this historically is what happened. And we can learn from this. We can learn from the scapegoat. Basically, the scapegoat would be sent out into the wilderness. And what would happen when that scapegoat died, or eventually it was, the thought is if you send out a scapegoat in the middle of the wilderness, they said according to tradition, they would push the scapegoat towards like a cliff. They would just kind of push it away, hoping that the scapegoat would just somehow die. Maybe he'll get eaten by an animal, or maybe he'll fall off the cliff, or whatever. But that death would bring that death would be what would make atonement for all of Israel. Because before they sent that scapegoat away, the high priest would lay his hands on that scapegoat and transfer the sins of the people onto that goat. It was like a transfer would take place, and then that scapegoat would die, Azazel would die, and now the sins would be atoned for. So just to sum up what you would read in this chapter, I encourage you to read it, Leviticus 16. What you'll see is the different offerings: atonement for the high priest, atonement for his family, atonement for the temple itself or the tabernacle itself, atonement for the Ark of the Covenant, atonement for the altar, atonement for the holy place. These things have to be made atonement for because they become defiled by the sins of the people and the uncleanliness. So your sin, Israel, your sin can cause even the land of Israel to become defiled. And if the tabernacle is defiled, if the altar is defiled, if the ark is defiled, then that means you could no longer offer a sacrifice anymore. That means no more offerings being atoned for. That means no more covering of sin for Israel. That means that no more is the Most High going to come and his presence dwell in the holies of holies, because now the place is defiled. So that's why everyone had to be atoned for, and the things that were used had to be atoned for. All very important. Okay. Now I'm skipping to verse 29. It says, "And this shall be a statute forever unto you." So we saw that last week when we were looking at Yom Teruah. This is no different. In fact, I would go and venture to say this might be the most important of all the appointed times. The reason I say that, they're all very important. You should keep them all. But the reason I say that is because of the harsh consequences for not keeping this feast. It's very strict. Very, 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 very strict. And you'll see prophetically why this day is so important. But it says, "And this shall be a statute forever unto you, that in the 7th month," we're in the 7th month. They call this the month Tishri, if you call this by the Hebrew name. But we're in the 7th month. On the 10th day of the month, ye shall afflict your souls and do no work. That means this is a Sabbath at all, whether it be one on your own country or a stranger that sojourneth among you. So that means if you got someone that lives with you, someone that serves you in your household, someone that is worshiping with you, serves the Most High as you serve the Most High, even though they might be a stranger, meaning they're grafted in, they're a Gentile that's grafted in. Any of those things, those people are just like you. They're not supposed to do any work. They're supposed to afflict their souls. And they're supposed to do this on the 10th day. Now, afflict your souls. What does that mean? We get a clear understanding of this from the book of Isaiah. Isaiah lets us know that afflicting your souls, I believe, is Isaiah 48. I'm sorry, not Isaiah 48. What is it? Isaiah, is it 50? 46? Isaiah 46? Hold on, let me go there. Is this the fast? Isaiah 58. So Isaiah 58, it talks about fasting. And I'm not going to read the whole thing for the sake of time, but verse 3 it says, "Wherefore, or why have we fasted, say they, and thou seest not? Why have we afflicted our soul?" See, affliction of our soul. and thou takest no knowledge. Behold, in the day of your fast ye find pleasure, and exact all your labors. So this is one of several examples where you see afflicting your soul has something to do with fasting. Also, in verse 13, it says, if thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy own pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of Yahuwah honorable, and shall honor him, not doing thy own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thy own words, then thou shalt delight thyself in Yahuwah, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of Yahuwah has spoken it. This is what we're supposed to be doing on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. We're supposed to be afflicting our soul, just like what we just read. We're supposed to be fasting. Fasting is a way we afflict our soul the entire day. We're supposed to be doing that. It says, it tells you the correct way to fast and the wrong way to fast when you read this chapter. And when we keep the Sabbath on this day, it's telling you how to keep the Sabbath. You're supposed to turn away from doing your own pleasure. This day is not a pleasurable day. This is one of the days where you're not supposed to be doing what makes you happy. You're not supposed to be doing what entertains you. This is a day where you humble yourself. And let me read a little bit more of this. It says, ye shall afflict your souls, do no work. It says, for on that day, verse 30, shall the priest make atonement for you to cleanse you, that you may be clean from all your sins before Yahuwah. It shall be a Sabbath of rest unto you. Ye shall afflict your souls by a statute forever. And the priest whom he shall anoint and whom he shall consecrate to minister in the priest's office in his father's stead shall make the atonement, and shall put on the linen cloths and the holy garments. He shall make an atonement for the holy sanctuary, and he shall make atonement for the tabernacle of the congregation and for the altar, and he shall make an atonement for the priests, and he shall make an atonement for all the congregation. These are all of the types of atonements that are being made. And this shall be an everlasting, that means you do this forever, an everlasting statute unto you to make an atonement for the children of Israel for all their sins once a year. And he did as Yahuwah commanded Moses. So once a year, this is supposed to be done, and it's supposed to be done forever. It's an everlasting. That means we're going to be doing this. It's been done in heaven, and it's going to keep being done. Okay, the last thing, I'm almost done because I know we're past our time, but if I don't read this, I don't feel like we're getting to the point of what we want to make. Because now we want to look and see how this applies to us today. You know, because now we have a high priest. And our high priest has gone and he's made atonement for us. So let's look at Hebrews chapter 4. I'm going to skip a lot because of the sake of time. But verse 13 says, neither is there any creature that is not made manifest in his sight, but all things are naked and open unto the eyes of him with whom we have to do. Seeing then that we have a great high priest that has passed into the heavens, Yahushua, the son of Elohim, the son of God, let us hold fast our profession. So just like now, just like then, there was a high priest after the Levitical priesthood, the sons of Aaron. Now we have a high priest that high priest has passed into the heavens, and this is Yahusha. He is the son of Elohim. He says, let us hold fast our profession, for we have a high priest which cannot be touched with the feeling of our which cannot be touched with the feeling of our infirmities, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. So now let us therefore come boldly unto the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So we can find grace, we can find mercy before the mercy seat, because we can come boldly before his throne, because he has gone into the heavens. And just like the high priest sprinkled that blood on the altar and sprinkled it on the ark and sprinkled it in the holy place, sprinkled it in the tabernacle, sprinkled it on the congregation and the high priest, Yahusha has sprinkled it in the heavenly tabernacle. Yahusha has taken his blood. And so now in the heavenlies and on earth, he has made an atonement for us. He has made peace with the Father. Actually, most people, I would say, probably think, most people that don't understand sacrifices and offerings, probably think that the Passover offering or the Paschal or Pesach offering is a sin offering. It's not. The Passover offering is not a sin offering. The Passover offering is a peace offering. The Passover offering, when the lamb was to be sacrificed, we make peace with the Father. When the children of Israel would offer up that lamb every year. So Yahusha was making peace with the Father. Similarly to what an atonement does. We make peace. We bring reconciliation back to the Father. One last scripture and then we're done. I really wanted to get into the some other things, but I want you to now see how Yahusha is our high priest and the order of his priesthood. It says, for every high priest taken from among men is ordained for men and things pertaining to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins, who can have compassion on the ignorant and on them that are out of the way, for that he himself also is compassed with infirmity. So the high priest, he's ordained, he's taken from men and ordained for men and things pertaining to God, so that he can offer gifts and sacrifices for our sins. He has compassion on the ignorant, those that don't know any better, and on them that are out of the way. They're not doing the right thing. For that he himself also is compassed with infirmity. He also sins. He also is weak. And by reason hereof, he ought, as for the people, so also for himself, to offer for sins. Exactly what we just read in Leviticus. He offers offerings for himself and for the people. See, when you read Leviticus and you understand it, now Hebrews can make a whole lot more sense. You don't take it out of context like so many people have been doing. If you don't understand the sacrifices, if you don't understand the offerings, you come to Hebrews, just like Paul said, just like Peter said, some of the things Paul says are hard to understand. The unlearned are going to have the difficult time understanding the things he says. If we're unlearned about what Leviticus has to say, we're going to come up with all kinds of doctrines that aren't right. Verse 5. So also Yahusha glorified not himself to be made a high priest, but he that said unto him, Thou art my son, today I have begotten thee. Remember when he said that? When did he say that? Thou art begotten thee. Anybody remember? Anybody remember when?
Right before the baptism, right?
That's right. John the Baptizer. He baptizes Yahusha, and the Spirit descended on Yahusha like a dove, and a voice from heaven. He says, Thou art my son. Today I've begotten thee. Which means at that moment, he was begotten of the Father. Not before that. That's another conversation, though. Verse 6, as he saith also in another place, Thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So there's different orders. There's an Aaronic order of priests that come from the Levites. But the Melchizedek order is greater than that of the Levites. Remember, Abraham, he paid a tithe to Melchizedek because Melchizedek was greater than Abraham. Who on earth could be greater than Abraham? When you think about that, Abraham, to him was given the covenant, the promise that from him was going to be many nations. Many nations were going to come from out of him. And from out of him will come the seed of the promise, which would redeem all mankind. But who would be greater than Abraham? Melchizedek was greater than Abraham, who we know from reading books like Jasher and also just doing some deep studying, even in the 66 books, you can come to the conclusion is Shem, because Shem was still alive during the time of Abraham. Noah was also a priest after the order of Melchizedek. If you remember in the book of Acts, Noah is called the 8th preacher of righteousness. Let's go there real quick. I know I'm taking a long time, but it just keeps coming out of me. So I'm not going to stop them yet. 8th preacher. If you have to leave, though, I understand. I'm not. If you have to go, I'm sorry. It's 2 Peter, chapter 2, talking about the flood. It says, "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah, one of 8 people, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood on the world of the ungodly." Now, this is a mistranslation. This actually literally says, "And Noah, the 8th, a preacher of righteousness." Remember, I told you, when you see words that are italicized in the King James, that means those words aren't actually there in the text. Just to prove it to you, let's go to 2 Peter chapter 2, verse 5, and you see Noah, the 8th, agados, and he in Greek person, it doesn't have a Greek word because it's not there. Preacher of righteousness. So Noah was the 8th preacher of righteousness. 8th preacher. Now in Greek, it means a herald. What is a herald? A herald is a person that's a messenger or an ambassador, someone who proclaims the word. That's what Noah was. He was a messenger, and he was the 8th messenger. Okay? He's the 8th messenger. Shem was the messenger before Noah. They were not only patriarchs, but they were priests. They were priests. Think about Noah. When he's on the earth, on top of the water, when Noah is traveling on that water, everybody died. He's now the only representative on earth for all of humanity. He is the priest, and he's not a Levite. He's a priest after the order of Melchizedek. There were no Levites after that at that point, but there had to be a representative. Go ahead, Abby.
Oh, my dad's typing in.
No.
Oh, he's not. But you said Shem was, oh gosh.
Melchizedek.
Yeah, but you said Shem was before Noah, but actually Shem is after Noah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Shem is after Noah. Shem lived at the time of Abraham. I'm sorry. I'm so glad you said that. So Shem becomes the representative after Noah. Why? Because from Shem would come the Messiah. From Shem would come Israel. Israel is Semitic because they are actually Shemitic. They came from Shem. All the Hebrews will come from him. So thank you for correcting me. Thank you. But I want you to see this because this line, this Melchizedek line, it starts with Adam. You see, Noah is the 8th, meaning Shem would be the 9th. And this is going to continue all the way until Shem is going to die. Then Abraham would become the next priest out of Melchizedek. This whole line, this whole order is going to continue to flow all the way until we get to Yahusha. They were all high priests operating apart from the Levitical priesthood. The Levites, they messed up. So Yahusha is both king and priest, and you see that within the word. Let's go back to Hebrews. Melchizedek in Hebrew, Melchizedek is 2 words. It's the word Melchi, which means king, and Sadek or Zadok. Melchizedek. Zadok means righteousness. So the priest after the order Melchizedek was the king or ruler of righteousness, priest and king. Okay. Different order, though, not of the Levite, who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplications with strong crying and tears unto him that was able to save him from death, and was heard, and that he feared. Though he were a son, yet learned he obedience by the things which he suffered. So the way that Yahusha learned obedience was by what he suffered. So he didn't just come out the womb obedient. He learned obedience. He didn't just come out the womb begotten either. He was begotten on a certain day. So it says, and being made perfect, he became the author of eternal salvation unto all them that obey him. Called of God, a high priest after the order of Melchizedek, of whom we have many things to say, and hard to be uttered, seeing ye are dull of hearing. So he's saying this is a hard thing for me to teach, hard for me to get this message across, because your ears are dull. You don't understand. You're listening to me, but you're not comprehending. You haven't received the revelation yet. For time ye ought to be teachers. Look, we've quoted in the church. You've heard this passage so many times, but look at the context. It's in reference to our high priest Yahusha, who made an atonement for us, a Yom Kippur offering for us. For when time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. See, if we don't know this, we're not really ready or qualified for strong meat. If we don't know this, if we don't know these things we're talking about now, how can he give us the true meat? Because this is foundational material right here. For everyone that useth milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. We don't understand this Yom Kippur. We are babes. I don't care how long you have been in the gospel. I don't care how long you have been studying. If you don't know this, you are unskillful, and you just need to stay on milk. This is very important. We understand this topic. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those who by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil. So this is very important. I'm going to stop here, but I didn't even get to go prophetically. Without going through all the scriptures, I'll just let you know prophetically, Yom Kippur is occurring again. Yom Kippur is the day when the judgment has been set. The books are opened on Feast of Trumpets, but the judgment has been set, an issue and determined out. Is that's like when you go before a judge, and now the sentence is being decreed. On Yom Kippur, the sentence has been decreed. There is no more time for repentance. That's it. The judge said, okay, this is your punishment, and now you're going to receive your reward, whether it's good or whether it's judgment and punishment. That's why this day is so important. That's why this day is a day of fasting. That's why this day is a day of humbling ourselves. It is not a day of pleasure, because once the remnant of Israel has been gathered together, once we have been gathered together, we are at Mount Zion. The judgment is going to be decreed, and the whole earth is now going to experience the wrath of the Messiah. They're going to receive the wrath of Yahuwah. That's what I want to say, because that's how the scripture terms it. We're going to receive the wrath of the Lamb. We're going to receive the wrath of the Messiah. Yahusha is going to come, and he's going to tread the winepress. He's going to stomp on the grapes. He's going to go to places like Basra, where Edom is at, and he is going to judge. His wrath is going to be poured out. And so it's not a time for us to giggle. It's not a time for us to laugh. It's not a time for us to be joyful. It's going to be a great and terrible day. It's going to be a day of gloom and destruction, and we want to be somber. And before this day happens, before the decree is set, we want to be right ourselves, and we want to tell others so that their judgment will go well with them. So this is one of the feast days or appointed times that we meet with Yah. It has not been fulfilled yet. In one way, you might say it's been fulfilled because Yahusha has made an atonement for us by his blood. And I would love to show you in the scriptures exactly when that happened, but we don't have time. But in one way, you might say the atonement has been made for, but in another way, the judgments have not been decreed yet. So when those judgments are decreed, then we'll see the complete prophetic fulfillment. But I think we're good. I'm going to end here. I don't mind staying on if people want to stay, but I'm going to pray. Heavenly Father, we love you. We thank you for your word. Thank you for Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. We thank you for all that you have done for us and what you're teaching us through your word, what you've taught to us through your prophets, such as Moses, which you've taught to us, to us about how important it is for the priest to be holy. And we know that we are a royal priesthood. We know that your desire is for us to be a holy nation, set apart. So I ask, Father, that you sanctify us. You say in your word that we need to sanctify ourselves, and you also said that you would sanctify us. So I ask that you teach us how to sanctify ourselves, and I also ask that you sanctify us. You do the spiritual sanctification part that we can't do with your blood, by your word, and by your spirit. We praise you, we give you glory, we give you honor, we magnify you, we bless you. And we also ask, Father, lastly, that whatever it is that you want us to do today, when I say today, I mean in this month and at these appointed times, please teach us. Please teach us so that we can observe these days appropriately. In Yahushua's name, we pray. Amen. Last thing I want to do also, I just want to give you the date of this day.
Amen.
So I think I have the calendar up. So let me do that. So I'm going by the 364-day calendar by Enoch. And we talked about this already a little bit. And according to this calendar, the Day of Atonement or Yom Kippur, it starts on the night of the 25th of September. So it starts at evening, like when the sun goes down, which is a Monday on the 25th. So this Monday coming up. And then for the majority of the day on the 26th, it will be Yom Kippur. So it's basically from sunset to sunset. Starts at sunset on the 25th, ends on the 26th. Now, for those of you that are going by the calendar by the state of Israel, the Ashkenazi calendar, then the day that you may celebrate it, let me give it to you, it starts on the first day of the week, Sunday night, till Monday night. So the 24th to the 25th. So I know not everybody is keeping this calendar, so that's why I'm just giving you both dates. Also, it's a little bit confusing. I know if you look up online, they're going to go with the date that the state of Israel goes with. So that's why we're a day off. But no matter which day you're going by, keep the feast and ask the Ruach to guide you. So anybody that wants to leave, you can. And thank you for joining. If anybody has any questions or comments, you can stay. I did have some cool things to share, but I don't know. I know people got to go to work and whatnot, so I don't want to. Maybe I can save it, I guess, for next week. Any comments or questions?
No, that's it. Good night.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, Joel. Have a good night, everybody.
You're welcome. Have a good night, Lawan. Have a good night, Romy.
Good night.
All right.
Leila Tov Mishblach.
Yes. It's good night, Prophet. I will see y'all later.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, G. Good night, Lisa.
Thank you for the
Bye.
letter. Good night.
You're welcome. Good night.